An arrogant CEO explodes into Judge Judy's courtroom, overflowing with ego and entitlement. Without hesitation, he steps forward, locks eyes with her, and snarls, "I will destroy you. Who do you think you are to have me arrested?" The room goes dead silent. Lawyers freeze mid-note, the audience forgets to breathe, even security hesitates. For a few long seconds, Judge Judy says nothing, just stares at him. Then she calmly reaches for her phone and dials 911. What happened next shocked everyone in that courtroom. But before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching from? And if you love seeing arrogance crushed, smash that subscribe button. The 911 call hangs in the air like a blade. The CEO's smirk flickers, just barely, like a light losing power. No one in the courtroom dares to blink. The silence that follows is not peaceful. It is sharp, electric, the kind that slices through bravado and exposes the truth beneath it. Judge Judy lowers her phone with steady precision, her expression unreadable. She does not look angry. She does not look shaken. She looks ready. Across the room, the CEO shifts his weight as if suddenly unsure where to place his feet. Moments ago, he strutted into the courtroom with the swagger of a man who believed law itself should kneel before him. Now, even the fluorescent lights seem to dim around him, as if refusing to illuminate his arrogance any longer. The audience remains frozen, hands halfway to mouths, pens suspended above paper, breaths trapped in lungs. It feels like the world has stalled at the edge of one impossible moment. Judge Judy finally speaks, her voice low and even, like a calm tide masking a coming storm. "Sir, you have made a very serious mistake." The CEO laughs, a brittle, defiant sound. "You called the police? On me? Do you understand who I am? Do you understand the damage I can do to you?" But the words come out thinner now, stretched and trembling at their edges. His voice no longer commands the room. It hovers uncertainly, waiting for permission to exist. The bailiff steps closer, not aggressively, just enough to remind the CEO that this courtroom operates under a law far older and stronger than his ego. A murmur ripples through the audience, but Judy raises one hand, and the room snaps back into silence. She turns her gaze directly on him, unblinking. The camera of the courtroom crew zooms in, capturing the exact second his confidence begins to erode. "You threatened a judge," she says quietly, "and now you will answer for it." He scoffs, waving a dismissive hand. "Do not pretend you have the authority to do this. You think your show protects you? You think your name gives you power over me?" Judge Judy's lips curl, not into a smile, but into something sharper, something final. "Authority," she replies, "is not something you perform. It is something you uphold." His jaw tightens, his fingers twitch. For the first time, the ego that carried him into the room appears to falter under the weight of her stare. A soft knock echoes from the back of the courtroom. The doors open. 2 police officers step inside. Their boots strike the floor with a steady rhythm, measured, deliberate. They pause at the aisle, scanning the room, uncertain who called them, uncertain who the threat is. The CEO's face brightens, an unsettling, triumphant grin. He lifts his chin, points boldly toward the bench and declares, "Officers, arrest her." The officers stop, look at him, then slowly turn their eyes toward Judge Judy, waiting for her next move. The officers pause mid-stride, uncertain, as the CEO proudly gestures toward Judge Judy like he is directing a waiter to clear a plate. For a heartbeat, the courtroom forgets gravity. It hangs there, absurd, dangerous, unbelievable. One of the officers, a tall man with steady eyes, glances at the CEO's outstretched hand. The other looks toward Judge Judy, waiting for her signal. Their hesitation deepens the silence until it feels physical, dense enough to press against the skin. The CEO mistakes that hesitation for agreement. "Do your job," he snaps. "She illegally detained me. She overstepped her authority. I will not tolerate disrespect from anyone, least of all a TV judge." The words spill out quickly, as if the more he says, the more real it becomes. He squares his shoulders, reclaiming the swagger he lost moments earlier. His suit gleams under the courtroom lights, but confidence alone cannot hide the crack in his voice. Judge Judy does not rise, she does not retreat. Instead, she rests her elbows on the bench and folds her hands, the posture of a woman who has seen arrogance try to storm her courtroom 1,000 times and fail all 1,000. "Officers," she says softly, "approach." The CEO steps forward as if to intercept them. "No, you listen to me. I am the victim here. I was dragged into this ridiculous hearing by a disgruntled nobody. And now this woman, thinks she can call the police on me?" The plaintiff flinches at the word nobody. He clutches his stack of papers tightly, the edges bent from months of fear and exhaustion. His eyes dart toward Judy, searching for reassurance that the courtroom is still a safe place to stand. Judy offers him the slightest nod, then she lifts her gaze back to the officers. "I called you," she says, "because this gentleman threatened a judge in her own courtroom." She lets the words settle like dust on polished wood. "I would like you to observe his behavior and document everything." The officers exchange a meaningful glance, something between relief and understanding, before stepping closer to the bench. The CEO laughs again, louder, sharper. "Document? Document what? My frustration at being dragged into a clown court? My refusal to bend to a woman who has overreached?" His voice rises with each word, no longer polished but jagged, like glass under pressure. "You do not understand how the real world works," he rants. "You do not understand the people I deal with. You do not understand—" Judge Judy taps her pen once. The sound slices through his tirade like a scalpel. "Enough," she says. He freezes, mid-gesture. Then, with theatrical flourish, he grabs a thick folder from his briefcase and slams it down on the edge of her bench. The papers inside rustle violently, like trapped wings. "These," he declares, "are the contracts. They prove you cannot touch me." The courtroom leans in. The officers inch closer. Judge Judy lifts the folder. Its weight tells a different story. As she opens it, the CEO smirks again, convinced she's about to see her own limits written in ink. The folder hits the bench with a thud, so heavy it startles even the officers. Its edges fray. Its spine bulges. Nothing honest ever looks that overstuffed. Judge Judy opens the folder with deliberate calm, the kind of stillness that unnerves guilty men more than shouting ever could. The papers inside are arranged like a shield, thick contracts, loose copies, highlighted pages, each piece screaming for attention, yet hiding something beneath. The CEO straightens his jacket, pretending confidence, watching her like a gambler waiting for the dealer to flip a card that could save him. "You will see," he says with smug assurance, "that everything I have done is justified." But the moment she lifts the first page, the illusion cracks. The document is messy, dates overwritten, margins inconsistent, signatures that try too hard to look important. Judy's eyes narrow, scanning quietly, the courtroom leaning in as if her silence is the real verdict. "You call this a contract?" she asks. The CEO smirks. "It is enforceable. My legal team drafted it. You might not understand." "I understand, fine." She flips the page. The next document contradicts the first. Different formatting, different terms, different tone. It reads less like a contract and more like a threat polished into legal language. The plaintiff shifts nervously, recognizing the same pages he was pressured to sign but could never bring himself to. His voice, usually soft, trembles with memory. He used those to scare me. Told me if I didn't agree, he'd take everything I owned." The CEO scoffs loudly. "You were never worth taking anything from. You exaggerated. You misunderstood. That is why people like you lose in business." The plaintiff shrinks a little, but Judy does not let the moment rot in silence. "Officers," she says, lifting a page with 2 fingers, "please photograph this." The CEO blinks. "Photograph? What for?" "Documentation," she replies. "Your behavior is already of concern. Now your paperwork appears to be as well." The officers move forward, cameras clicking softly. Each flash feels like a nail in the coffin of his confidence. Judy continues flipping pages. One page slides loose, revealing a handwritten note tucked between terms, annotations in the CEO's own handwriting, corrections, edits, deletions, the kind of changes people make when they are sculpting a lie. The CEO swallows, watching too closely. "I do not recall writing that." "That," Judy says, holding it up, "is not what I asked." She turns it toward him. The writing loops differently at the bottom than the top, as if someone was rushing or nervous or forging. The plaintiff whispers, "That was not there when he first showed it to me." Of course it wasn't. Judy sets the note aside like evidence of a crime. Then she returns to the main contract and flips to the signature page. The signature is bold, confident, too confident. Her eyes stay on it for several seconds, long enough for the room to feel the shift in temperature. "Sir," she says, voice cooling, "is this your signature?" The CEO lifts his chin. "Obviously." She tilts the page, letting the light expose the pressure marks, the uneven strokes, the hesitating curve of the pen. "Interesting," she murmurs, "because it does not match the others." A ripple runs through the courtroom, small, sharp, inevitable. Judy looks up, eyes locked on him. "Let us talk," she says, "about why you would forge your own name." He laughs when she questions the signature, too loudly, too quickly, like a man trying to drown out the sound of truth. But the laughter stops before the arrogance does. The CEO leans forward, planting his palms on the defendant's table, like he owns not just the courtroom, but the ground beneath it. "You cannot possibly be serious," he scoffs. "I do not forge signatures. I have people who handle documentation. I do not have time to scribble on papers." The words are meant to sound powerful. They echo instead with insecurity. Judge Judy lifts the page by its corner, letting it sway gently, as if testing the weight of his lie. "Interesting," she says softly, "because whoever scribbled this did a very poor job of pretending to be you." A low hum moves through the audience. Shock, curiosity, the unmistakable scent of downfall beginning to simmer. One of the officers inches closer, notebook ready. The other watches the CEO's hands, sensing agitation coiling in his posture. The CEO scoffs again, louder. "Do you have any idea how absurd this is? This is beneath me. You are beneath me. My company makes decisions that affect millions of dollars. I do not answer to small minds who do not understand high-level business operations." Judy does not blink. "Forgery," she says, "is not a business operation." He freezes, not visibly, but internally, like a wire pulled too tight. The plaintiff shifts in his seat, voice quiet but steady. "He used that contract to threaten me. Said if I didn't follow the terms, he'd bankrupt me and anyone who worked with me." The CEO snaps toward him, finger raised. "Because you agreed to terms, you signed. That document was valid." Judy lifts a second page. "Except," she says, tapping the margin, "these terms were added after the original draft, and the edits match your handwriting, not your legal team's." The CEO's face pales for a second, 1 second, before he forces another smile. "So? Leaders edit documents all the time. That does not make it illegal." Judy tilts her head. "Editing is legal. Threatening people with fabricated terms is not." The room goes still again. The CEO's breath sharpens, a subtle shift that tightens the space between him and the truth. He straightens his tie, a nervous tell he does not realize the camera's catch. "You are twisting things. You judges always twist things. The world does not run on your rules. It runs on mine." Judy leans forward, elbows on the bench, voice low enough to be a whisper, but sharp enough to cut stone. "Power does not rewrite the law, and it certainly does not rewrite your handwriting." The plaintiff watches him, eyes wide, tears barely held back. The officers exchange glances, silent, serious. The CEO tries to laugh again. It does not come. Judy spreads 3 versions of his signature across the bench, the original, the edited draft, and the one from the so-called final contract. Side by side, the truth is undeniable. The CEO stares at them, throat tightening. "What exactly," Judy asks, "were you trying to hide?" His mouth opens. No sound emerges. Judy places her hand on the forged page and says, "This signature is illegal, and you know it." He leans forward, voice trembling beneath the weight of his own bravado. "You do not understand the world I operate in," he says, a sentence men only use when their world is starting to collapse. The forged signature lies between them, exposed under the fluorescent lights like a wound that can no longer be hidden. The CEO's eyes dart across the bench, searching for a version of reality that might let him escape this moment. None appear. Judge Judy maintains her steady gaze, the kind that turns courtroom walls into mirrors. "Explain the discrepancies," she says. He straightens sharply. "Discrepancies? You think a slight variation in pen pressure makes something illegal? Real contracts evolve. They get adjusted, refined. That is how business is done." Judy taps a fingertip on the forged page. This was not refinement. This was deception. The CEO's jaw flexes, irritation tightening every muscle in his face. "You are oversimplifying. You have no idea how high-level negotiations work. My company handles mergers, acquisitions, global operations, things far beyond the comprehension of this courtroom." A few audience members shift uncomfortably. Others stare at him with a mixture of disbelief and fascination, like watching a skyscraper slowly tilt before collapsing. The plaintiff inhales shakily. "He told me this contract would protect us both," he says, voice trembling with courage he has not felt in months. "But when I read the final terms, everything had changed. He threatened to sue me for breach if I didn't comply." The CEO whips around. "Because you agreed to the terms." "I never agreed to those terms," the plaintiff replies, trembling but resolute. "You changed them." Judge Judy raises a hand, restoring silence as efficiently as hitting a switch. "Let us return to the facts. This document was altered. It contains clauses that do not appear in the earlier drafts, and those alterations were made in handwriting that matches yours." He opens his mouth to argue, but Judy continues before he can breathe life into another lie. "And the timestamp on the digital scan," she lifts another sheet, "indicates this version was created after the dispute began." A ripple of recognition moves across the room. The officers shift, their attention sharpening. One of them scribbles something in his notebook. The CEO's composure falters, panic flickers at the edges of his expression like a dying light. "You do not understand," he repeats, but now the words sound more like a plea than an accusation. "In my world, you act fast, you adapt, you make decisions that protect your interests. Everyone adjusts documents, everyone." "Not everyone threatens people with them," Judy replies. For the first time, his confidence buckles visibly. His shoulders sag, his breathing becomes uneven, shallow, as though the air itself has turned against him. She spreads the documents wider, creating a paper trail of his own making, a trail that leads nowhere but to the truth. "Mr. Caro," she says, using his name for the first time, making it sound less like a title and more like a diagnosis. "Your world is collapsing because it was built on lies." His eyes widen, not in recognition, in fear. Judy taps the page again. "Now," she says, "let us talk about this timestamp." He freezes, just slightly, when she points to the bottom corner of the page, a tiny number, a digital date stamp, the kind of detail arrogant men never expect anyone to notice. Judge Judy lifts the document between two fingers, turning it so the courtroom lights expose the glossy sheen of a freshly printed page. The timestamp glows faintly, a silent witness that never lies. "Mr. Caro," she says, "this version was created 3 days after you claimed the contract was finalized." The CEO's throat bobs in a thick swallow. His eyes flick to the clock on the wall, then to the officers standing nearby, as if time itself might come to his rescue. "That must be a printing error," he snaps, voice sharp but brittle. "My team uploaded hundreds of drafts. Someone mislabeled something." Judy arches a brow. "Is that your official explanation?" He hesitates, just a beat, but in a courtroom where silence is louder than confession, that beat detonates. One of the officers steps closer, eyes narrowing. The plaintiff straightens nervously, sensing the shift in the air, the same shift prey feels when a predator finally loses its advantage. Judy lays out 3 documents side by side. "This page was printed 2 months ago, this one 1 month ago, but this," she taps the timestamp, 3 days after your dispute began. Conveniently around the time you threatened the plaintiff with legal and financial ruin. The CEO's jaw clenches. "You are twisting facts." "I am quoting your paperwork. It is industry practice to revise documents, not to weaponize them." His breath hitches, and suddenly his arrogance no longer fills the space. It shrinks, implodes. His shoulders tense as though gravity has grown heavier. The plaintiff speaks, voice trembling but honest. "He emailed that version to me at midnight, said if I didn't sign it, I'd never work again. Said he'd destroy my reputation before sunrise." The CEO wheels on him. You liar! You ungrateful coward! You begged me for opportunities! Sir, Judy cuts in, her tone like a steel door closing, your threats are not the plaintiff's fault. They are your choices. He turns back toward the bench, gripping the edge of the table until his knuckles stiffen. You do not understand the pressure I am under. People rely on me. Investors rely on me. I make decisions quickly because I have to. Judy's gaze doesn't soften. Pressure does not justify forgery. He sputters, desperate. I did not forge anything. She lifts a printed email. Your name in the sender line, Mr. Caro, time-stamped just minutes after the altered contract was created. Then explain, she says quietly, why this email attaches the fraudulent draft with your personal approval stamp. The courtroom air compresses. The cameras stop their slow sweep. No one moves. His mouth opens, but no sound escapes. Only fear. Real, unmasked fear. Mr. Caro, Judy says, are you finished lying? His chest rises and falls too quickly. No, he whispers, before correcting himself. Yes, this is not what it looks like. On the contrary, she says, folding the page, it is exactly what it looks like. She sets the time-stamped draft aside, because we are just getting started. He exhales sharply, the kind of breath a man takes before doubling down on a lie he no longer believes. But the room no longer bends around him. It resists him now. Judge Judy folds the time-stamped document with clinical precision, placing it atop the growing stack of his unraveling credibility. The room feels smaller, denser, as if the walls themselves are leaning in to witness the collapse. The CEO lifts his chin, desperate to reclaim altitude. You are blowing this out of proportion, he insists. My intentions were misinterpreted. People misunderstand leadership all the time. Strong guidance is not the same as coercion. Judy's eyes narrow. What you call leadership sounds a lot like intimidation. He flashes a tight smile. Too many teeth, not enough confidence. Only the weak feel intimidated. The audience reacts instantly, a ripple of disbelief, a whispered gasp. Even the officers shift, their patience thinning. The plaintiff lowers his gaze, fingers trembling around the edges of his folder. You made me feel powerless, he says quietly. You said you would bury me. I said no such thing. The CEO's voice rises again, frantic. You are twisting my words, just like she is. He points at Judge Judy with a shaky hand, a gesture so reckless it draws a sharp intake of breath from half the room. Judy stays still, unshaken. Sir, your problem is not that people twist your words. Your problem is that your words twist you. A flush creeps up the CEO's neck. Anger or fear, impossible to tell. He pulls at his collar like the air has suddenly become suffocating. You all want to see me fail, he mutters. You enjoy this. You want to drag down a successful man because it makes you feel righteous. No, Judy replies calmly. We want the truth, and it is getting harder for you to avoid it. His voice cracks. I have nothing to hide. Then, Judy says, leaning ever so slightly forward, you will not mind if we review additional material. The bailiff turns toward the plaintiff. Judy gestures, please bring the device forward. The CEO's head snaps toward them, confusion flashing across his features. His footing wobbles for the first time, the ground beneath his arrogance finally shifting. What device? He demands. The plaintiff reaches into his bag and withdraws a small digital recorder, old, scuffed, but humming with significance. He steps forward tentatively, placing it on the bench. The sound of plastic touching wood is louder than any outburst. Judge Judy regards the device with a measured stillness. This, she says, was provided by the plaintiff. It contains a conversation between you and him. The CEO blinks, once, twice, too fast. That recording is illegal, he shouts. He cannot. This is entrapment. You do not understand the full context. Judy lifts a hand and his voice collapses mid-sentence. The context, she says, is what concerns me. The plaintiff swallows. He told me everything, what he planned, what he would do if I resisted. A tremor passes across the audience. Even the cameras seem to hold their breath. The CEO lunges forward a step. Do not you dare play that— Mr. Caro, Judy interrupts, please return to your position. He stops, though his hands shake with the effort of restraint. She presses a button. Static crackles. Then, his voice fills the room. Judy leans closer to the device. "Let us hear," she says, "what you sound like when you think no one is listening." The first seconds of the recording crackle through the speakers, static, a breath, the hum of a quiet office. Then his voice cuts through the room like a blade, and every ounce of arrogance drains from his face. The CEO's voice on the recording is unmistakable, smooth, low, weaponized. Not the frantic bluster of the man now fidgeting beside the defendant's table, but the voice of someone who believed he was untouchable. "You will sign it," the recording version of him says. "You do not have a choice. People who get in my way regret it." A shiver moves through the audience. Even the officers stiffen, their expressions darkening, as the tone shifts from business dispute to full-blown coercion. The real CEO shakes his head violently. "That is edited. He spliced it. That is not the full context." Judge Judy does not even glance at him. Her eyes remain on the small speaker, on the truth unfolding second by second. "We will let the recording speak for itself," she says. On the recording, his voice continues. "I can ruin you before sunrise. I can bury you in lawsuits. I can make sure no one in this city works with you again. Do not test me." The plaintiff covers his mouth with a trembling hand. Hearing the threats out loud, hearing them in this room, undoes a knot in him that has been there for months. His eyes water, not from weakness but from the shock of finally being believed. The CEO steps forward, almost stumbling. "Turn it off! That's not admissible. This is a violation of—" "Sit down," Judy says. He does not sit, but he stops. On the recording, the plaintiff's smaller, hesitant voice replies, "I just want a fair contract." The CEO's recorded response is a cold laugh. "Fair? Fair is for people who can afford to lose. I win because I am willing to do what others will not. Sign it, or I will crush you." Gasps erupt. One audience member mutters, "My God!" Another shakes their head slowly. The CEO reaches for the device, but both officers step forward at the same time, blocking him with effortless authority. Judy does not flinch. "This," she says, tapping the bench lightly, "is not leadership. This is extortion." He tries to spit out another excuse, but no one is listening anymore. The tide of the room has turned, an invisible shift in gravity. He is no longer the storm in the room, he's the man drowning in it. A few more seconds of audio play, his voice giving explicit instructions, telling someone to clean up the documents, to adjust the dates, to make it airtight. Judy's eyes narrow. "Who?" she asks quietly. "Was that second voice?" The CEO's face drains of color because he knows, and he knows she knows. The recording continues, someone responding to him, someone agreeing, someone helping. A second voice, clear, steady, complicit. The officers look at each other, stunned. The plaintiff's mouth falls open. Judy's expression becomes impossibly still. She presses stop. "The plot," she says softly, "is bigger than your lies." And the room waits, breathless, for what comes next. He grips the edge of the defendant's table, knuckles whitening as though the wood itself is the only thing keeping him upright. His breath comes uneven. The breaking point has entered the room, and it is wearing his face. Judge Judy does not speak at first. She lets the silence tighten its grip around him, a noose woven from his own words. The recording still echoes in the courtroom's walls, his threats, his arrogance, the second voice quietly enabling him. The truth lingers like smoke that refuses to clear. "Mr. Caro," she finally says, "do you recognize the other voice?" He blinks rapidly, eyes darting from Judy to the officers to the plaintiff, as though searching for someone willing to validate the lie forming on his tongue. I cannot be sure," he stammers. "Audio distorts, devices malfunction, people imitate voices. You cannot expect anyone to identify—" "Stop." Her single word slices through his excuses like a blade. He deflates a little. Not visibly enough to admit defeat, but enough for the audience to notice, enough for the plaintiff to finally breathe in without fear. Judy slides a printed transcript across the bench. "This is a typed version of the recording," she says. "The timestamps match your emails. The statements align with changes made to the documents." The second voice references adjusting the terms before sunrise, a directive identical to the handwritten edits we just reviewed. His eyes widen. Not because he is surprised, but because the circle is closed around him. That does not mean anything, he insists weakly. My executive team oversees many deals. Anyone could have. Anyone? Judy interrupts. Or someone you entrusted to help silence a man who refused to bow to you? The plaintiff's shoulders rise and fall in a trembling exhale. He is seeing the truth unfold, not imagined, not doubted, not dismissed. The CEO's face contorts, a war breaking out behind his eyes. My team betrayed me, he blurts suddenly. That is what this is. Someone is framing me. Someone doctored that recording to make me look responsible. Judy leans forward. Sir, the only person making you look responsible is you. He tries again. No, you do not understand. This has gotten out of hand. Investors are watching. My board is watching. My reputation is not my concern, Judy says. Your actions are. For the first time, the room witnesses something resembling fear break through his polished exterior. His bravado flickers like a dying bulb, bright one second, gone the next. The plaintiff lifts his head. His voice is small but steady. Why did you do this to me? I only wanted a fair deal. The CEO turns toward him, but whatever insult he intended to hurl never escapes his lips. Something in his expression shifts, guilt or panic or the realization that the role he played so confidently no longer fits him. He swallows hard. I did what I thought was necessary. Necessary? Judy repeats. Threatening him, forging documents, commanding an associate to adjust reality so you could win? He flinches, a visible crack in the armor. This is not who I am, he whispers, but the room knows better, and so does he. Judy folds her hands. Then let us see, she says, who you really are when the pressure stops protecting you. For the first time, he is silent. No insults, no swagger. Just a man staring at the ruins of the persona he spent a lifetime constructing. The courtroom settles into a heavy stillness, an almost reverent quiet, as though everyone senses they are witnessing not just a legal downfall, but a psychological one. Judge Judy lays the final set of documents before her, clean copies, highlighted contradictions, the trail he thought he had buried now illuminated with surgical clarity. Mr. Caro, she begins, her tone neither harsh nor gentle, simply factual, impacifiable to escape. Let us walk through the harm you caused. He winces before she even continues. The forged signature. She holds it up. His breathing falters. The edited clauses you added without consent. His eyes drop. The midnight threats. His jaw tightens, but he cannot bring himself to speak. And finally, the recording. A ripple of tension moves through the room like a whispered earthquake. The plaintiff watches with hands clasped tightly, as though afraid the moment might disappear if he relaxes even slightly. Judy continues, voice steady as a heartbeat. You did all of this because you believed you could control the outcome, because you were convinced that fear was a tool rather than a cruelty. He shakes his head, slowly, dully. I was protecting my interests. Judy leans forward. You were destroying someone else's. He flinches again, the words landing like blows he can no longer dodge. His face contorts, not in rage this time, but in something far more vulnerable, something human, something he has spent years hiding. The plaintiff's voice trembles across the room. You threatened to ruin my life. And for what? Why was winning more important than being decent? The CEO closes his eyes. The question hits him harder than any accusation. When he opens them again, the bravado is gone. In its place is exhaustion, years of performing strength collapsing inward all at once. I never meant for things to go this far, he whispers, voice cracking. I didn't think, I couldn't lose. Not again. A murmur spreads through the audience, because that was not the voice of a tyrant, it was the voice of a frightened child trapped in a man's body. Judge Judy's expression changes, subtly but unmistakably. She tilts her head, studying him not as a bully or a CEO, but as someone unraveling in real time. What do you mean? She asks quietly. Buy again? His lips part, then close. His hands tremble. He looks down at them as though noticing the shaking for the first time. It's nothing, he stammers. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with this. Everything you do, Judy replies, comes from something. And that is when it happens. The rupture. His breath catches, his shoulders cave. A single tear, small, unsteady, slips down his cheek before he can wipe it away. The courtroom gasps. Because this isn't strategy. This isn't manipulation. This is collapse. Judy's voice softens, not with sympathy, but with recognition. Mr. Caro, what truth are you hiding from yourself? He squeezes his eyes shut. Another tear falls. He shakes his head violently, refusing to answer, refusing the vulnerability clawing its way to the surface. But the truth is already visible. The persona has shattered. Judy leans in, her voice barely above a whisper. Tell this courtroom, she says, who you really are without the power. And everything hangs on the brink of what he will finally reveal. His confession doesn't free him. It exposes him. And the courtroom feels it. A shift like a storm rolling in after the sky is already cracked. Judge Judy lets the silence linger long enough for everyone to feel its weight. The CEO, once a monolith of ego, now looks like a man standing knee-deep in the rubble of a world he can't rebuild. He avoids eye contact, eyes fixed on the desk as though the wood grain might offer him an escape. Look at me, Mr. Caro, Judy says softly. He does. And it takes effort, as if lifting his head requires strength he hasn't used in years. You claim this is not who you are, she says. Then help me understand who you believe yourself to be. He swallows hard. I built everything from nothing, he mutters. My company, my reputation, all of it. I couldn't afford failure, ever. Once people see weakness, once they see a crack, they dismantle you. Judy studies him, her expression thoughtful, layered, controlled. Power built on fear, she replies, is not power. It is panic wearing a suit. A murmur sweeps across the gallery. Quiet agreement, quiet revelation. The plaintiff's hands relax slightly, the first sign of relief he's shown since the trial began. The CEO blinks rapidly, struggling to maintain composure. You don't understand what it's like, he says. Every day someone tries to take a piece of what I built. Competitors, investors, journalists. I can't show softness. If I do, everything collapses. Judy nods once, almost imperceptibly, not in agreement but in recognition. You have confused strength with intimidation, she says. You believed power meant never being questioned, never being challenged, never letting anyone see you bleed. He looks down at his trembling hands. His voice thins. If people don't fear you, they stop listening. The plaintiff speaks up, voice gentle but firm. I wasn't trying to destroy you. I was trying to work with you. I respected you. I just didn't want to be bullied. The words land with quiet force. The CEO's head drops lower. His face creases, not from arrogance this time, but from shame. A truth he's avoided for years begins to surface. He hasn't been powerful. He's been terrified. And Judy sees it. Your choices, she says, didn't come from strength. They came from insecurity. And insecurity is the most dangerous place to lead from. When you feared losing everything, you became willing to harm anyone. He inhales sharply, as though the air itself burns. Judy continues, voice steady as a scalpel. The problem is not that you made mistakes. The problem is that you convinced yourself those mistakes were the cost of success. He meets her eyes and for the first time doesn't look away. You built an empire, she says, but somewhere along the way you forgot to build a conscience. A long, weighted silence settles. Then Judy turns to the officers. Document everything. The consequences exceed this courtroom. The CEO stiffens, not in defiance, in dread. Judy looks back at him. And now, Mr. Caro, you must face the part of yourself you tried hardest to ignore. He stands there, not as a CEO, not as an untouchable titan, but as a man cornered by the echo of his own choices. The courtroom feels different now, quieter, not the tense electric silence from earlier, but a heavy contemplative one, like the air itself is trying to understand how a person becomes the architect of their own downfall. Judge Judy studies Mr. Caro with a gaze that is neither pity nor punishment. It is evaluation. She's no longer dealing with the blustering bully who stormed in hours earlier. She is looking at the unraveling of a man who finally sees the edges of his empire crumbling. Mr. Caro, she says, You will have the chance to respond before I issue my findings. His lips part, but nothing comes out. The plaintiff shifts forward, hands clasped, summoning courage that has taken months to grow. Your Honor, all I ever wanted was to be treated fairly, to work honestly. He made me feel like I didn't matter. Caro's shoulders tighten. The words hit him harder than any legal accusation. Because they're true. The plaintiff continues, voice steady but thick with emotion. I admired him. I really did. He built something big. I thought that meant he was someone worth respecting. He swallows. But he used that success to treat people like pawns. Caro winces visibly. Every statement is a mirror, and for the first time, he can't look away. Judge Judy nods to the plaintiff, acknowledging his strength. Thank you, she says. Your voice matters here. The CEO's breath catches. His carefully conditioned posture, shoulders back, chin high, chest out, collapses by degrees. He looks smaller, not physically, but in spirit, as though the shadows of his own actions now crowd him. Finally, he speaks. I didn't mean to, his voice breaks. I didn't mean to make you feel like that. The plaintiff doesn't respond. He doesn't have to. Caro rubs his temples, trembling. I built my company by being tough, by never letting anyone challenge me. I thought, if people feared me, they'd follow me. I thought that was leadership. His voice cracks open completely. It's all I ever knew. Judy lets the truth settle between them, a truth that explains his behavior but does not excuse it. Leadership isn't measured by how many people you can silence, she says. It's measured by how many people you can elevate. Caro closes his eyes. A tear escapes. He doesn't wipe it away this time. The officers stand at the side, stoic witnesses to the unraveling. The audience watches with a mixture of empathy and stern judgment, unsure whether to feel anger, relief, or something like grief for the man who built a cage out of ambition and lived inside it. Judy folds her hands. Mr. Caro, this is your opportunity. Say what justice means to you. He swallows hard, his voice barely above a breath. I don't know anymore. And that admission, small, fragile, devastating, is the clearest truth he has spoken all day. Judge Judy exhales slowly. Then perhaps, she says, it's time the court shows you. The courtroom holds its breath, not out of fear, but out of the profound, unsettling quiet that happens when the truth has finally finished speaking. Judge Judy rests her hands on the bench, palms flat, fingers relaxed. The storm of evidence, emotion, and unraveling confession has settled into a dense stillness. It is the moment before the final note in a symphony, when the audience sits frozen, waiting to see whether the last sound will soothe or break them. Mr. Caro stands motionless, the weight of his downfall now etched into every angle of his posture. He doesn't wipe the tears from his face. He doesn't straighten his jacket. He just stands, as though he knows any attempt to rebuild his image now would only reveal how hollow it always was. The plaintiff watches him, not with hatred, but with something far more powerful. Clarity. For the first time, he sees the man who tormented him not as a giant, but as a frightened shadow casting itself large against a wall. Judy's voice breaks the silence, low, weighted, controlled. You have spent years believing fear is a form of respect, she says, but respect that must be forced is never real. It evaporates the moment the force does. Caro swallows, his gaze lowering again. The truth of her words lands heavily, like stones dropping one by one into the well of his chest. Judy continues, her tone shifting into something colder. Power is a responsibility, not a weapon. You used yours to intimidate, manipulate, and coerce. You made a choice, a series of choices that harmed others for your own comfort. The plaintiff exhales shakily. The courtroom crew adjusts their cameras, capturing every nuance, every fracture, every echo of consequence. Judy pauses, letting the weight settle. And now, she says, we stand at the line between consequence and transformation. Caro's breath stutters. Is there any way to fix what I've done? The question lingers, not as a plea for forgiveness, but as the first honest thing he's said all day. Judy studies him, and for the briefest second, the faintest flicker of empathy crosses her eyes. Not for the man he was, but for the man he might become if he learns from this moment. Repair begins with accountability, she replies. Without it, remorse is just performance. The plaintiff nods gently, tears brimming. The tension in the room shifts, not loosening, but changing shape, becoming something quieter, heavier, more human. The officers step forward, sensing the verdict approaching. Cameras snap into focus. Every breath sharpens. Judge Judy adjusts her glasses. This courtroom, she says, is prepared to render judgment. The silence becomes absolute. The world narrows to her voice, his trembling hands, the plaintiff's hopeful stare. The gavel lifts, slow, deliberate, carrying the weight of everything that led them here. Just before she brings it down, Judy turns to the audience and says, "Listen closely. Justice is about to speak. Before this verdict lands, tell me in the comments, can someone who abuses power ever truly change, or do they simply become better at hiding who they are?" The gavel falls, not with fury, but with the quiet, undeniable certainty of justice finally taking its rightful place. The sound echoes through the courtroom like a final heartbeat. Slow, solid, irrevocable. Judge Judy lowers the gavel and looks directly at Mr. Caro. No anger, no triumph, only the stern clarity of someone who has spent a lifetime watching people try to outrun the truth. This court, she says, finds in full favor of the plaintiff. The plaintiff covers his mouth with a trembling hand. Relief doesn't come in a rush. It comes in a quiet collapse of tension he has carried through sleepless nights and impossible fears. Tears slide down his cheeks, but this time they are not from intimidation. They are from release. Judy continues, "You will compensate the plaintiff the maximum amount allowed under this court's authority." She taps the forged contract, the altered timestamps, the transcript of recorded threats. "And every piece of this evidence will be forwarded to the appropriate agencies for further review." Mr. Caro's knees bend, almost buckling. He steadies himself on the table. But even that gesture feels hollow, like a tower leaning on its final beam. "This isn't prison," Judy says, sensing his panic. "But understand this. Civil court does not shield you from the consequences of criminal behavior." A collective murmur sweeps across the gallery. The CEO's lips part, and for a moment it seems like he might argue, reach for the arrogance that once fueled him. But the fire is gone. All that remains is a stunned, fragile flicker. "Your Honor," he whispers, "I never wanted to hurt anyone. I thought that's what it took to survive." Judy leans back, her expression softened by the wisdom of someone who has seen far too many people confuse fear with strength. "Survival does not require cruelty," she says. "Leadership does not require domination. And success, true success, never requires breaking another person to protect yourself." The plaintiff looks at Caro, voice gentle but assured. "You could have worked with me. You could have treated me like a partner, not an enemy." Caro's shoulders slump. "I don't know how to be anything else." "That," Judy says, "is your real problem, not your company, not your reputation, you." There is no venom in her tone, just truth. Truth he can no longer run from. The officers step closer, not to seize him, but to witness the final moment of accountability. Cameras remain trained on Judy as she gives her last words, the moral spine of the entire case. "Mr. Caro," she says, "power built on fear collapses the moment someone refuses to be afraid, and today, that collapse was not caused by me, but by the truth you tried so desperately to bury." He bows his head, unable to meet her eyes. Judy lifts the gavel one last time, not to strike, but to signal the end. This matter is concluded. The audience remains silent, absorbing the weight of what has unfolded. As Mr. Caro is guided toward the side door for processing, the plaintiff approaches the bench, voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, Your Honor." Judy nods with the faintest hint of warmth. "You stood up to him. That took courage." The camera widens, capturing the courtroom, the discarded papers, the humbled man, the relieved plaintiff, the judge who remained unshaken.